Hello, how you doing? How's it going? You seem to be muted. I'm switching from the Fibonacci conference to Mount Greylock. Okay.
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I think it's just the two. Oh no, we've got 6 people right now. Excellent.
How many people?
We have 6 people right now.
Okay. And more. Ellie.
Okay, I see that this is already being recorded, so I don't have to remember to hit start there. Excellent.
Will I be able to show the slides from my computer?
Why don't you try seeing if you can do it right now? You have to be made co-host.
Oh, let's see. Where is that again? Share screen.
Host
disabled.
Okay. Christina, could you make Luana a co-host, or do you have that power? If not,
I think so. Hold on.
Okay.
No, I do not have that power. I can make her a host, but that's it.
But if you make her a host, then you lose being host, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Do you want to make me host, and then I can show her slides because I have her slides on my computer?
Sure. You may have to, I don't know what will happen with the recording, so just keep an eye on that, okay?
Given that the meeting hasn't started yet, that's fine.
Yeah, no problem. I think they automatically set it up to record.
Okay.
So are you going to be showing my slides, Steve?
Right, and then you can just tell me when to advance.
Okay, I'll send you a new set. I changed it just slightly. I'll send you a new set.
Perfect. You should see a conference schedule right now. Is the screen sharing working?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm just closing down a conference right now. All right, so it's 3 o'clock. I see people are coming on. I will just give people just a little bit more time. Okay, and then it does say that it is recording.
When am I going to be speaking, Steve?
So I thought when we got to the 3 feet versus 6 feet discussion, that might be a natural place to say, but maybe a little bit early, depending on how the conversation goes. All right.
Okay, I just sent you the slides.
Perfect.
I like our red-headed visitor.
See, that's the enthusiasm I want to see for education subcommittee meetings.
My mother was a redhead, so I always have an affinity toward redheads.
I just finished a conference where we had almost every time zone of the world represented. And so it's nice to have a meeting where everybody is roughly in the same time zone. And in fact, I had a suggestion that we might want to consider trying to find a weekly time for these meetings. So just something to think about as to maybe going for like a doodle poll or whatnot to find what works well. All right, so I see it as 3 o'clock now. So I will call the meeting to order. I'm just gonna double check that it is recording. All right, welcome to the Mount Greylock Regional School District School Education Subcommittee meeting. Today is Thursday, July 23rd, 2020. We are meeting for Governor Baker's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, MGRSD 30A, Section 20. We'll be meeting by Zoom. The public will not be allowed to physically access the school committee meeting, but this meeting will be recorded and posted on the district webpage. The public is also welcome to make comments either at the beginning of the meeting during public comments, or if you have something to say that is relevant to our discussion, please feel free to speak up. And as long as I mentioned that, Christina, did you want to say something about the search?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to let everyone know that an email went out to staff, teachers, and parents this past Monday. The email contained information on the timeline for the superintendent search and interview process, and we asked for community members to submit questions or qualifications for our superintendent candidates. And I have to say, we are garnering some wonderful interview questions. We really, truly have a thoughtful and heartfelt community right here at Mount Greylock Regional, and I'm just really impressed. There is still time to submit your questions. Our meeting to discuss and select our slate of questions is actually tomorrow at noon, so we're asking for submittals by tomorrow at 8 a.m. Definitely keep your eye on the district calendar located under the school committee tab on our district website. The most up-to-date schedule of our meet and greets and interviews will be found on that calendar. And MASC will be bringing forward the final candidates at our school committee meeting that's being held next Wednesday, July 29th at 6 p.m. Thank you.
And then I've shared your email address in the chat, and I'm also putting it up right now on the screen for everyone to see. And they can just email
Awesome.
questions.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So the first item of business is public comments. We ask that these are kept to 3 minutes or less. And then again, if somebody has something that they want to say later in the meeting, absolutely fine to just raise your hand and speak up. No one has contacted me with public comments, but I'll just wait a minute in case anybody has something that they would like to add. Okay. The next item is approval of minutes. Did we get a copy of the minutes?
Should be in the packet, I believe. I haven't double checked though.
I have the wrong thing open up right now. I don't have the, I just have the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do I
Second.
have it? Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Roll call vote.
Carter, I.
Conry, aye.
Miller, aye. The minutes are now approved. Okay, now we are on agenda item 4, reports from the working groups. So we have several groups: technology, facilities, instruction, wellness, operations, governance, and parent students. So I recognize that unfortunately not everyone is able to come to all meetings, but hopefully we have representatives from the different groups who are able to give us some information as to what is going on. So technology, should we start there?
Sounds like a plan to me. Joelle, would you actually, would you Mary or Joelle, who would be the on that particular one?
I'm not on the working group, but I certainly can give you a perspective from Mount Greylock. Is there, I think Rob and Jude are on the working group, right? Who else? Is that what you're looking for, the working group, or just an update for where we are at the individual schools?
Working group, but also updates on schools is great as well.
Okay. Well, just to get it kicked off, we at Mount Greylock, an additional purchase of Chromebooks has been made so that the one-to-one program can be extended from 7 through 12. And then as an extension, there have been purchases for both Lanesboro and Williamstown so that one-to-one can be provided for students there as well. And that includes both the computer as well as actually a sturdy case, which was selected by students last year. And then the second piece of it is reviewing the use of hotspots. We had used Kajits for the spring experience that we just had, and Rob Winook is looking into other options that might provide better bandwidth and a stronger impact with regard to student access.
If I might give a little, I can continue on with this. Just to remind everybody, the participants in that tech committee are Julianne Haskins, Rebecca Leonard, Pat Blackman, Eric Forsberg, Cody, Jude, Rob Matthews, Matt Byer, Rob Nook, and Ella Smith. And essentially, they've looked at initial survey questions and they're working on making sure they've got something out to get information back by July 17th. I have not seen the results of that yet. But the inventory has been completed. Cody has provided some insight on the inventory. There's 200 Chromebooks for elementary and Wi-Fi hotspots are available. I think it was just mentioned 25 laptops have been ordered and delivered to LES. Platforms, we are truly looking at this point, moving into Canvas for 7 through 12, and Google Classrooms seems to be the approach that's going there. And we've also got some trainers, or shall we say champions, who are working on providing professional development. In fact, Pat Blackman is basically providing training, has offered training to all 7 through 12 teachers on Canvas, and he's going to be working to organize training basically throughout the year. I think that's about it for the update that I got there.
Thank you. And then
Did I
Rob.
miss anything?
Well, just to add, Julianne and Rebecca Leonard are working to curate resources so that we can have PD access for teachers throughout, not just as we start up through August and September, but just access through the year. And there are conversations about how teachers who are more familiar with different applications can end up supporting each other. So real collaborative push moving forward.
And then I noticed that we have both Jude and Rob from the task force. Did either one of you want to say anything about the HiFlex proposal?
That one, sorry, I'm having internet issues. This is Jude. That one actually, we haven't spent a lot of time in the technology committee. I'm happy to walk through it, but that came from sort of a derivative version of the parents advisory group. But if you want to wait, Steve, or we can talk about it now.
Whichever you would prefer.
It's fine. I'm assuming everyone has got a copy of the document. Rob, we've got that out to the group. Is that correct?
I believe so. This is that's something I've been putting out. It's on the website, which I was going to hand out. I don't know if everybody here has got a copy of the.
I can actually project it.
Okay, please, if you would so.
Yes. So.
Yeah. So Jude, I don't know if that question was directed at Rob Putnam or Rob Matthews, but I did.
Oh, it was Rob Matthews.
I did send a PDF of the document to Steve last week.
Excellent.
All right, we're lousy with Rob. Rob Matthews, do you want to take point on this, and you can punt off to me if I can be helpful?
Sure, we can do it that way. That's fine. So really, the guiding principles of this document are primarily to ensure that we maintain the relatively low level of the COVID-19 infection. And I think part of that is ensuring that both the interior spaces of the schools are safe for both students, staff, and faculty, as well as anyone who's visiting the buildings. And so, I think the guiding principle in my mind is really the idea that regardless of the three models that we choose to go with, we understand that students and staff and faculty are all going to essentially be required to be remote on any given day at a moment's notice. And so the HiFlex model that is proposed in this document really gets at the core of that and allows for that sort of flexible, fluid interaction of on-campus, in-person versus remote asynchronous learning or synchronous learning. So, Steve, if you want to switch, I can't really page down, so I'm trying to do this by memory. But that is sort of summarized in this matrix that you see here as number 5. So the idea is that for students and staff, we really need to be able to respond to, they're going to fall into one of those, that 4x4 matrix, and we need to be able to accommodate both students and staff who fall into any one of those buckets. So you can continue on, Steve. And feel free to ask me any questions because I don't have any kind of formal presentation for this.
And then one of the things that I noticed, it says, over here, the 6 feet social spacing of schools will dramatically reduce the usable space in the classroom. But turning from one Rob to another Rob Putnam, you said we believe that we can get all the students who wish to return back in the buildings at 6 feet.
Yeah, I should actually, I should probably report out on a meeting that all of the working groups had yesterday, and a sort of a task where we're moving forward on. What happens is we've been conducting a feasibility study in regard to the requirement by the Department of Education to say whether we can get all students back in the buildings. In fact, today I visited both Les and Wes, and also all of the principals and I were involved. Actually, all the entire administrative team and I were involved in a discussion on this whole feasibility study that has to be submitted on the 31st. And I have maps and I could show you ideas of how this actually works. But the summary, the best way of summarizing this all is that at both elementary schools, we have the room to bring all students back into the school, ensuring that we have 6 feet distances. And I'd like to just give, if I could share my screen, I'd like to show how that looks.
So the only way I can share your screen, unfortunately, with the license we have is to make you the host. And I don't know what that does to the recording.
Okay. Then,
if you have an image, if you email me the image, I can then project the image.
Oh, there we go. I will send you, basically, I'm going to send you right now the pictures that I have, and then you can walk through those.
Perfect.
Excellent. I like that as a, so let me just forward this to you. So here we go, Stephen Miller.
Okay.
Anyone, would MGRHS do fine?
Yes.
Okay, it's on its way.
So we should have Jeopardy music or something playing in the background as I wait for the email. Oh, we have a soundtrack. Excellent. All right.
Normally I bring my guitar to these things, but.
So it's loading up right now.
Excellent, and you can actually share those pictures.
Yep.
And what I can do is I can just sort of walk you through each of them.
Okay, was there like a share link?
Yep, it was a link from,
Yep.
Yeah, it was a link.
Yep, I've just clicked on that right now, and once I confirm that these are the pictures, I will share my screen. Okay.
Excellent.
What I'm going to do is I will go to screen share. Okay, here we go.
So, as you can see, what we've done is that, and I really have to thank the maintenance crews, the principals, and the entire custodial staff and Tim for organizing this. But as you can see here, this is an example of one of the classrooms. And this is mapped out with 6 foot. Now, typically what that is, that's 6 feet from the center of the desk to the next desk to the right or the left of it, and then 6 feet between the others. Typically what we found is that we're comfortable getting 16 students into each of the rooms. We're comfortable at the elementary schools. We are capable of getting 16 students into each of the classrooms. And at this point, the range of class sizes at LES goes from grade 1. I'm going to just sort of read out the class sizes: 13, 14, 14, 13, 11, 11. There's an 18, 17. Those are grade 4s. Then we've got essentially everything's under 16. That's the simplest way of putting this. If you could go through some of the other pictures, I could show you other schools. So you could take a look there. And by the way, Nolan and Kristen, be ready to hop in and say which building it is, because I'm not exactly sure of these. Can you actually hop through these?
So that's a first grade classroom in Lanesboro Elementary.
And these, we didn't even have to go to hexagonal in order to do this.
Right.
These are just set up. Although there is an example of a hexagonal spacing. Yeah, now you can go to the bottom there.
Okay, I think this is the best way to go through it.
Yep. Well, that was the hexagonal, that last one. We're
And I
trying
want
out, we're trying out different ways of looking
Yes.
at it. Now, if you notice right there, look at the space where the teacher station is. So there's additional area to give the teacher plenty of room to be able to work while still the kids are maintained. Also, the issue is the fire departments have been through through the buildings and have confirmed that there is the necessary access to egress in the classrooms. And by the way, I also have to thank essentially the fire chiefs and Tim have been working together to ensure that any classroom organizations that we've got are set up. So if you keep on going through the pictures.
Yep. And which building is this?
That's still you, Nolan, or are we off to?
That looks like Williamstown, but it could also be Lanesboro. It could be Lanesboro as well. It looks like Lanesboro. It definitely looks like Lanesboro, but I don't know. I haven't been in many classrooms in Williamstown, so.
That's not Williamstown.
It's not, it's Lanesboro.
It's
Okay,
definitely
keep going.
Lanesboro.
Williamstown.
Right there?
Williamstown.
That one. Oh my God.
Yep, yep.
Just, you can look at the windows.
We had some Williamstown pictures, and I'm not sure where they
That's
are.
Williamstown also.
Williamstown.
Yep.
Oh, that's Williamstown. Good. There we go. So we were, as you can see, there's a lot of room in these classrooms.
Yes.
So you can actually stop sharing now, Stephen, if you want.
Okay.
And it's basically, I wanted to give an idea, but we have created, the administrative team has created maps to look at every option we've got. Now, as I said, both elementary schools, we can fit with some modifications. In essence, there are a couple of classes that are above the number that we particularly like. For example, the fourth grades in Lanesboro, there are 17 and 18, so we'd have to deal with something about that. And then the potential numbers at Williamstown, we've got this, while the fifth grade classes are at 17, all the other classes, fourth grade down through kindergarten and preschool, are all below 16. The sixth grade, there are 3 sixth grade classes of 19, 20, and 20, which would require some other things. If we were going to put all students in school, we would most likely have to add a 4th class in 6th grade in order to maintain strict 6-foot distancing throughout there. Now, that's for there. If you take a look at, and Jake, you can hop in anytime you want here, if Jake Schutz is on the line. Essentially, it becomes a different challenge when we get up to Mount Greylock.
Hi,
okay, hop in, Jake.
Hey, Rob. So at Greylock, it is doable for, it's more doable for the middle school, just based off their schedule and the middle school model where they can move in a cohort. But the movement of the high school students would severely restrict our ability to fit everyone in there. If you're just looking at square feet and how many desks fit in the rooms, we can fit about 16 seats in rooms, considering placing them 6 feet apart. But that doesn't bring into consideration when students get up and walk down the aisle to use the bathroom or to leave or to sharpen their pencil. So for the high school, it's looking like it would be very difficult to fit all students back into the building.
So what are the thoughts for the high school then?
Well, the instructional group, which is going to drive a lot of this, has not made a recommendation yet. We're looking at what it would look like remotely, because like Rob said, no matter what, there will be some people working remotely all the time. And it doesn't look like fitting everyone in there is feasible, although physically possible. And so we're looking at a variety of hybrid options that I really don't want to point any out yet, because we have another meeting tomorrow, and that group is looking to consolidate our analysis and our thoughts to make one recommendation. So I don't want to misrepresent or give any mixed messages out at this point.
I think this would be a perfect point. I just sent you a link, Stephen, to show how we're working together with with all of the different groups are working together to be able to come up with, to be able to share information and also to compare notes. So if you could open that link and share that, I think that.
So give me 1 second to switch back. Is this the one you were thinking of?
That's the one. So
Excellent.
what happened was, just for your information, and this is for the Ed Subcommittee yesterday, I convened all of the working groups to come together on a Zoom meeting. I recorded that meeting and sent it off to all those members who could not attend. But what I did is I wanted to give together considerations for the working group. And as you can see here, I set the challenge. We have 2 upcoming deadlines, one's 31st and August 10th. And essentially, this you can skip down to the next page, because this is really just, actually even the page after that. There we go. So the action items for each working group. This document is designed to focus and capture and share the work that they've been doing since they were formed. The document is divided into 2 major sections. First section being procedural considerations that have to be resolved to ensure safety and to create a viable educational environment. And the second is designed to capture and share the thinking as it relates to the 3 models. So what happened was everybody in the groups were charged with reviewing this entire document. If the committee felt ownership over some question that was raised, that they would comply to complete response. And then they were also asked to share any working documents they have. But what this is a shared Google documents among all of the working groups. This is the first time that we've been able to, essentially the first time I've pulled all the groups together, because they've been working in isolation from each other. But now this is, I suggested a meeting at the old Forge in the tent out back. But as a possible way of sharing our information in a safe, socially distanced fashion, with all the potential for being able to slack our thirst as we this very busy work. But I haven't been able to organize that yet. But the concept that we have here is that this is hopefully a way of doing this together. So if you can scroll down, you can see busing and transportation. So what happened is I wanted folks to be able to, each of the committees to weigh in on each one of these questions. And as you can see, these are just procedural things. If a committee has got nothing to say, then they don't say it. But if they've got something to say, so what distancing, cleaning, and procedural recommendations do we have for bus transportation? Each of I've actually added a committee called the Extra and Co-Curricular Committee, because I know that I'm sure that the instructional group is looking at this, but I wanted to involve Lindsay Von Holz. Did I say that correctly? I basically wanted to involve some of the people who are involved in extra and co-curricular things so that we can have they can share their perspective. So as you can see here, some of the groups, the wellness has already come in. Symptoms checklist, either through an app or a paper versions that parents must complete daily. So we're just trying to work our way through all of these different thoughts. Now, if you keep on going to the end, you'll see, basically, these are all just questions that we're working through.
This way you can pause the screen, and anybody who wants to, they can just hit pause and see what it is.
Yeah, basically that. And what the concept is what I wanted, while I would much prefer to have everybody convene in a room and groups could present each of their would present their findings, just I've not quite figured out a way how to pull that one off yet. But so I think the concept is if you keep going down, this is our way of sharing in a remote fashion. And if we keep on going down, there's a page that actually goes into the 3 models, which is the second part of this task. It's even farther. There we go.
Yep.
So the 3 plans, wellness recommendations for the in-person model, the hybrid model, and the other. So this is an attempt to solicit information from everybody. This is all based on a concept that our reopening plans are going to be, this is going to be, I don't want to use the word negotiation, but it's got to be, we've got to understand what everybody's been working on, what they've been thinking about. And then the administrative team is the one that's charged with coming up with an approach. But the administrator team wants as much input as possible, so that the way we come up with these 3 models, or the models that we come up with, are taking advantage of the best thinking that folks have in regard to the work that's been going on. So I think that's probably the best way of summing up where we stand right now, where each of the working groups stand, and where we have to go next.
Thank you. So
there's one other link that you could go to that I was just thinking is, here, let me send you another link, just so you can share this. Because as much as I want to make sure that I'm sharing everything with the, here, let me just quickly get this one thing I've got from Jonathan. This will show you the model that we are working on. Let me just get Jonathan's email, send it to you. Jonathan, here we go. So I'm going to forward this to you, and if you would be so kind as to open this, Steve.
Absolutely.
It would be, so Stephen, there we have it. I'm sending it to you to your Williams account this time. Sorry.
I have all accounts open right now, so wherever it goes, excellent. I'm just toggling back and forth.
If you would open this up, this is a work in progress. This is the website that, this is the Mount Greylock website, and Jonathan Knopper is putting it together for me. We're still not quite up for prime time at the moment, but this is going to be a place where all this information that that the working groups have been putting together, plus everything else, is in one place for all families to see.
It has not arrived yet.
Oh, okay. Let me just make sure. Sent. Next time I will coordinate. I'll do a better job of making sure you've got all this.
Well, but this is good. I mean, we're adjusting what we're saying based on what people are bringing up, what concerns are, what comes up from the conversations.
Right.
And so I just sent you an email. So if you reply to that email with the link, or if you just give it to me in the chat, I can get it from that as well.
Okay, I'm hitting the link right now. Email in. Well, that's interesting. Here we go. Here's your link. Send it back to you in the email.
Okay.
Here it is. Control V. Done. On its way.
Perfect. Okay, just came up.
Excellent.
Okay, let me go back to share screen. Here we go.
Perfect. So this is the site that's happening, and we'll have this up. What we're doing is putting everything that's coming up. So you've got state guidance, and we just received new guidance on the 22nd. Don't click on them because I don't know if they're quite active yet. But we just received guidance on the 22nd about transportation and facilities. So there are actually, once we get those up, you'll be able to see the guidance about the state recommendations on bus occupancy in order to maintain 6 foot, basically maintain proper social distancing and mask wearing. We also have.
But for buses, that's outside of family units.
Yes, these are essentially. I have a call in. Our Carolyn Burnett is our bus, our connection to Do4 bus company. And I actually have an email from her right now. I sent her these things, and I'm organizing, I'm putting together a meeting with her so we can go over this on how it affects the Mount Greylock Regional School District busing. But essentially you got state guidance. Everything in here, we copied Amy Haynes, all the research studies she had and put them on so that anybody reaching the site could immediately access those. In the future, we're going to have the Mount Greylock reopening group reports that will all be available there for everybody to be able to see. And this is, again, we're still working on making this available, but I just wanted to share that this should be up and running perhaps by tomorrow. So that we can ensure that everybody in the community has access to all our latest thinking and latest guidance that we're getting from the state, which seems to come out all the time. One other thing I thought I should probably mention is that we did a survey. We just did a survey, which I could share this with you as well, or I could just sort of read it out. You want to take a look at it?
Sure.
And you can share it?
I can, absolutely.
Okay, let me just find out where this is. Because I wanted to go through this. I wanted to explain there was a difficulty in the survey that I take full responsibility for, but I just wanted to be able to explain it. Let me make sure I got this here. Okay, copy. I gotta quickly find this, one moment.
Okay, if it's going to take you a while, I could actually have Luana talk about.
Have her do that, please. Thank you.
Okay, Luana, would you like to talk about some of the work you have been doing, looking at the different literature on back to school stuff?
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to. And I sent you the slides so you can share the slides with everybody. I think this is going to be particularly relevant for Mount Greylock. I think that if we can reopen schools with 6 feet, that is fantastic, and there is nothing else to discuss. Let's just reopen with 6 feet. If we cannot...
I just interrupted you. Are the slides showing now to everybody?
No, not for me.
Okay.
For you?
And that's why I wanted to just check. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me try again. How about now?
Yes.
Now, yes.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So again, I think that what I'm going to be arguing is for getting all students that are willing to back to school in full-time, in person, with face masks and as much distance as possible for this to be a reality. So my name is Luana Maroja. I'm a professor of biology at Williams College. I'm also a parent, and I have 3 kids, 2 of them in Mount Greylock. And of course, my top priority is the health and safety of students and teachers over this semester. Change slide. But I'm going to argue that our risk is extremely low. Next. And this is because we live in an area that currently has incredibly low infection rates. You can click, yeah. So you have Massachusetts is already a place with a low infection rate, and our county in particular is particularly low. This is data of today. Again, and we are also very compliant in face mask using. So we are in a special location where not only we have a low infection to start with, all kids are local. They're not going to be coming from the outside. And they're very compliant with both social distance and face masks. Next. On top of that, kids are known to have a lower risk of getting infected to start with, and a lower risk of transmitting. This is particularly true for the elementary age group, but it's also relevant for the school age group. So lower number of infections, and once they are infected, lower chance of transmitting that infection on, and other kids have an even lower chance of getting that rather than older adults. And if you saw a recent study that was highlighted by the New York Times recently, I'm very happy to talk about it. It has been greatly misrepresented. So if you have questions on that, I can show. But here is the data for Massachusetts. So we have the age group from 0 to 19 have the lowest risk per capita than any other age groups. And here is the data that came from this paper that just got highlighted. So next. And we can see that the transmission rate of out of household for a young age group is very low. So these are individuals that got exposed to uninfected individuals within less than 6 feet. So they were tracked by the tracing. And less than 1% of these individuals got infected upon long-term exposure and in short distance to infected individuals for the high school age group. So you can see 0.9% is the rate for high school. And furthermore, and I think that's really important, is that we do have data from all over the world, and the data shows that schools are reopening with 1 meter distance, a lot of them 1 meter distance, some of them 1 meter distance and no masks. And despite all of that, there hasn't been school outbreaks. So that is, it has been safe in Europe, in Asia, to reopen schools with 1 meter and no face masks. And I put some references there. Steve, you can click, the sources will show. Yeah, so we have some sources here showing the data from these schools. Next slide. So on top of that, the costs of any online learn far outweigh the benefits. So there is, we have a low risk and a very high cost of online learning. So I think we all know that online learning was a giant failure over these 3 months. So data has shown now that kids were set back 7 to 10 months in math and reading skills during the only 3 months of online. So they were set back almost 1 year with this online studying. And of course, like always, it is the minorities and the weaker students that are set back the most. We cannot let that happen again. The dropout rates were incredibly high. In the Boston district, we had 20 to 25% dropout rate from online systems. I mean, kids that never show it, not even once show it to the online. I mean, this might be the last times that kids ever attended schools. We're gonna be losing students. And again, of course, minorities and weaker students and students from less affluent families are gonna be the ones affected. So huge costs. We had a huge increase in depression rates and also abuse in the household. And what is worse, this abuse is not being noticed because there is nobody to notice. So again, we see detriments to the most vulnerable of our students. And again, the costs are of course much higher for less affluent students and the students that are academically weak. So we're gonna be hurting the people that are the lowest in in life. So we're gonna be removing chances for these students, which shouldn't happen. A hybrid system. So one in which the student comes every other day, half of the day, every other week, will actually increase the social networks of these children as affluent families will hire tutors and nannies to take care of their students while they work. So I think you have all seen the pod schools, the micro schools, the pod schools that are popping up all over the country. People that can afford that will do that. And the rate at which, let's say, Williams College students will be hired to tutor kids that are staying home every other week or every other day, that will be huge. So the infection rate for those kids will likely increase. And with that, we're going to be bringing then those students into the school and with potential risks of spreading it even more. So this could hugely backfire. I think a hybrid system is way more dangerous than a system in which we distance students as much as physically possible with a minimum of 1 meter or 3 feet. So next slide, which is just a summary slide. So again, I argue that we have to bring kids back to school full-time in person with face masks and as much distance as physically possible with a minimum distance of 3 feet. There is a very low risk if you take into account the low infection rate across our county, the lower chance of becoming infected of these age groups, the lower transmission rates considering the age group, the face masks, and the distance. We have safety. and the benefits of reopening schools far outweigh the costs. So the cost of a partial reopening of hybrid systems are enormous. You have school dropouts, you have especially hurting those less affluent students, you have health and mental costs, and you have a potentially higher rate of transmission because of the school pods and the hiring of tutors that is going to inevitably be happening in a hybrid system. So this is all I had to present, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
So thank you. I had asked Luana, she is a biology professor, to help me with some of the scientific research and literature. This was for the agenda item on the 3 to 6 feet separation. And I'm thrilled to hear that we do not need to really have that conversation at the elementary school, that we can get all the kids back at the 6 feet. Jesse had suggested 3 feet is acceptable, 6 feet when possible. I think like to wait for greater detail from what's going on from the high school committee in terms of what they think the options are. But I just thought it would be useful for our committee to get some facts about what the virus is, what its transmissions are like, what its effects are on students. Does anybody have any comments?
Steve, this is Jake. Could I comment?
Please.
So it's not a high school committee. So it's the instructional committee that it's comprised with folks from both elementary schools and the high school. So
Okay,
they haven't made their recommendation either way. And that includes recommendation for the middle school, high school, and the elementary school.
Okay. But my understanding is that we believe that we can do the 2 elementary schools and the middle schools at 6 feet and have any student who wants to come back able to come back. Is that
Can I make a comment?
Please.
Sorry, this is Kristen Thompson. I know this is Sharon. I apologize for me coming in late. I was having some connectivity issues here at the campsite. I'd just like to interject and say, though it is physically possible for us to get all of the students into the elementary schools, there are some other considerations that we need to make as far as the type of instruction that is being delivered for the students. And the amount of staffing and scheduling that needs to go in place well, especially at West. I think there needs to be a lot more consideration, especially when it comes to instruction and how we're delivering instruction, especially to students with higher needs, and how we do that. And that may not be in a situation where we can have 100% of students back in class. Can we physically do it? Absolutely. We've shown that we can. But should we do it is another question, especially when it comes to delivering instruction and the needs of students. So I appreciate and I respect everything that we're doing, but I think we need to make this other consideration as well.
Yes, Amy?
Make some comments. So I would just like to speak to Luana's lovely overview and slideshow. Thank you, Luana. Luana and I are good friends. I will challenge one idea, which is that the hybrid model would create further compromise by limiting or increasing social networks because of learning coaches, because we know that our children all go home and a good portion of them are going home to Williams College professors. And so the exposure level to the Williams College community, for instance, will be high regardless of whether somebody hires a student who is tested twice a week to be a learning coach. I do think there's equity issues buried in that learning coach idea that many have articulated in the PAC meeting. I think when it comes to transmission, that we can't ignore that that we finally have an epicenter that is testing a pediatric population, and that's Florida, and New York did not. And at that point, for Wuhan and for Italy and for New York City, children were sheltered in place. We now and largely under-tested. We now have an epicenter where testing is happening, and children are pulling 30% positive on those tests. So that's children under the age of 18. There's a suggestion that children under the age of 10 are less likely to transmit, and that those who are older than age 10 and certainly middle school and high school students will transmit the virus based on South Korea's contact tracing program, which I believe, Luana, is the study that you're citing, the CDC just posted last week, provides evidence that their rate of transmission, whether it's 1% of the population or not, their rate is on par with adult rates. So the limited size of the Mount Greylock classrooms and relative to its population, I think is a key consideration. And I think a hybrid model doesn't necessarily increase risk, because this is in a residential setting where children, even if they go to school every day, all day, every day, aren't coming home to their communities. So I think that those are relevant points. And as well, we do know that Europe, Australia, South Korea have all had school closings. We also know in the United States, where outdoor air camps have occurred, that there's been closings of camps, including right here in Manchester, where nearby in Manchester, where camp has been closed, and that the patient 0 in that outbreak was a 17-year-old in a camp, a day camp. I think outdoor air is safer than indoor air. I'd like to see us use outdoor air and outdoor learning spaces as much as possible for Mount Greylock. I think I am in agreement with Luana that to the extent that we can get these kids in the building, the better. But I'm not comfortable with the science indicating with certainty, science is never certain, that transmissibility is has been adequately monitored in the pediatric population. So thank you, Luana. And
okay, yeah. No, let me respond just with the latest study. So the latest study is a preprint. We don't have the full data yet. What we have is 2 tables. It's a very large study, but only a large study for the adult population. So all the adult population from 20s to 80s, they have more than 1,000 subjects in each of these brackets. So it's 10 years brackets. And I did that graph based on the data from the thing. What got the headlines was not the out of the household transmission rate, which is also incredibly low for kids, both middle school and elementary school. What got the headlines was the transmission rate for in the household. So in the household, kids under than 10 basically never transmit. So basically, kids under the 10 do not even transmit to the parents that are caring for them in the household. Kids between 10 and 19 do transmit to parents in the household. And according to this paper, but not other papers, they transmit at the same level of older adults in the household. Outside of the household, they don't transmit at the same level as adults at all. So it's almost like an outlier peak for in the household only. So we're talking about outside of the household for schools. And we are also, the other issue with the paper is that while the number of patients from ages 20 to 80 was over 1,000, from ages from 0 to 10 was only 29 patients, and from ages from 10 to 19, it was only 124 patients. So the reason why they can't get as many patients is because they're simply not getting infected at the same level. So this is actually a data point that goes in favor of it's not as risky as it sounds if you simply look at transmission inside the household.
Or they're not being tested because schools haven't been open to capacity. And when they are open and there's one positive case, they move to a shutdown model rather rapidly.
Same, right? I think we should have.
I just want to pause this for a second. I just want to make sure, because we did say originally it was 3 to 4, so I want to make sure that Rob, that you have been able to present everything from the various working groups. So if it's okay with everyone, I just want to pause this conversation. Rob, you had sent me another link. And this was the copy of the July Family Survey. Rob, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thanks very much.
No problem.
I just wanted to take this opportunity because we did create a survey. Actually, this is sort of it was a Frankenstein survey, I have to admit. Some of it had been built before I got here, and there was one particular question that nobody of the people who sent it out really understood. But I want to share what we've got so far. Because we wanted to get feedback from the family about certain things. So for example, we had a great response rate. I've never seen anything like this. Yeah. Mount Greylock 7 through 12, 511 responses, 92%, 167 responses, or 84 and 88 at West. You can see how folks were, the grade levels they were. So we really got a good bit of information out of this. So if you go to the first question, and by the way, I would have loved for the Department of Education to give us, there you go. I would have loved to have, Department of Education to give us juried surveys that had been vetted by psychometricians on that they actually asked what they wanted to ask, but I didn't get that. So we came up with the best we can. So we came up with this idea of, is that if, given the precautions and efforts the district is taking to enable in-person instruction, how likely are you to send your child back to school for in-person instruction? And the real thing we were interested in was no, because no, which seems to indicate, no, I'm not going to do it no matter what you do. And you can see that there were a number of students, but not as high as I might have expected. I believe that our general idea of parents who answered probably and maybe, I think that we have an opportunity to sway them if we come up with a plan that really addresses their concerns, which again are being, I think, brought up in these meetings as well. So if your student takes a bus, are you willing to have that student take the bus this fall? Again, the no is what we were looking for. So this is going to make us have to think about how we're going to respond to this. But the next question is, could you drive?
But for this, for the people who are saying no, we don't know how many of them would be able to have their kids get to school throughout the weeks.
Yeah, but that's where the next question comes in.
Okay.
If your child typically rides the bus to school,
right,
the number of students of the bus is properly limited for social distancing, does your family have an alternative way to get your child to school? So we're basically, this is, given what the restraints we might have, this might, we might have to ask folks to do this. If you go on to the next one. If the school has a limited number of students would you be able to keep, would you have the desired capacity to keep your child home in the interest of allowing students who do not have that option to attend in person? Again, we got this information. The next question was the one that I was unable to figure. Oh, someone had a question?
I do, Dr. Putnam. The question about the option to stay home, this is Amy Hain.
Yep.
Could you clarify what exactly that means? Because I think the special education community wanted clarity on that and the learning coach item.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know that. Essentially, the people have the right to stay home if they don't want to send their child to school, and we still need to provide instruction. And again, this is a question. I don't think that I believe this came from an earlier iteration of the survey. I mean, I have to take responsibility because I sent it out. But unless Joelle or Joe can help me out on this one,
it just sounds like it has a component of altruism that I'm not sure by law anyone has to stay home, leave their kids home out of the goodness of their heart.
No. And in a sense, no, but the question, as I look at it, the question again, as I look at this,
Dr. Putnam, it's Jake.
Yep, hit me.
I believe that originated from a recommendation that Greenfield Virtual High School made to us. So I think that's where it came from, and it got plugged in to a survey or in a recommendation somewhere. So that was just one piece of info. This is from my understanding, and I was like, two lines removed, but I think it was a recommendation from the virtual school.
Thanks, Jake. I think what I'm looking for is just clarity from this committee for those who would be in the category of remote learning doesn't work, remote learning for economic reasons, for special education reasons, that that those families are in fact not dependent on the answers to this item.
Oh, and I can guarantee that's not the case. And in fact, during our conversations today, we were recognizing the fact that even if we talk about remote learning, there are students who are not going to be able to, in other words, if we come up with a hybrid model, there are students who will not be subject to a hybrid model. They'll be in school all day. And it's just, at this point, we're trying to figure out who needs to be in school all day. This actually was, as I said, as Jake just mentioned, I think that I can assure you that students who need to be in school will be in school.
Regardless of how somebody answered this item.
Yeah.
That's important. Thank you very much.
And going on down below.
Joel raised a hand. Rob, Joel raised a hand.
Yep, and just a quick thing about that question also. I also think it had to do with trying to get a sense of whether the high flex model, if the high flex kind of model depended upon some people staying home, if that would even be a possibility. But again, nothing that anyone answered here is committed. We should have said that, I think.
Right. To me, this is, trying to get a sense of what the numbers might look like for the fall. And it helps us tremendously in terms of trying to weigh the different options.
And again, I take full responsibility for it. It's just, it was coming as late as I have to the district. I was using things that had been previously put together. And as I said, I would prefer to have psychometricians working on all my surveys in the future. If you have any, Avery, please just send them my way. Okay, that's that for that particular. That was all we had for the survey, but just wanted to let you know that we're.
And then were there other items to report from the working groups? Rather than seeming to report from each one individually, we seem to just have been having a discussion.
Yep. Oh, by the way, I should probably pipe in that I'm just to let you know from the perspective of operations and things of that sort. I met with the town health officials from both Lanesboro and Williamstown, and basically to get all their information and feedback. I'm meeting with the police next week. By the way, essentially I'm trying to, from an operational point of view, I'm meeting with busing, with the towns so that we can figure out, so that we better understand how the whole contact tracing thing works. And then we're also meeting with the police, because as we are planning how to open schools, one of the things that we've been talking about is not having everybody in the building enter through one door, which is the typical protocol that has been put in place for safety concerns. So we are talking with the fire chiefs and the police chiefs and everybody involved in school security for their best recommendations on how to operate a school that in a way that is sensitive to the essentially social distancing rules, but also actually serves two masters, security and health, which are kind of indivisible.
Thank you. And then just before I ask if there are any more comments from the community, so, I had mentioned the different working groups, and the working groups are, proceeding, discussing the various things. Was there anything else from the working groups that people wanted to discuss right now? Anything else from facilities, instruction, wellness, operations, governance, parents, community, students? These are all somewhat related, and that's why it's nice to have a somewhat free-flowing conversation like this.
Indeed.
Okay. Are there any other comments from members at the meeting? So for Jude and Rob, for the HighFlex model, was there anything else you wanted to share about that?
Well, I don't think we need to go through the document point by point, but we were about to approach an area that was sort of responding to what Amy was talking about as far as different classes of, different groups of students and faculty and where they fall on the spectrum of needing to be in school versus having options about being in school versus needing to be out of school. And so I just wanted to say that that proposal does respond to some of those concerns as well.
Right. And Rob, I believe you can respond to this better than I can, but I believe every discussion has always been very clear that we know it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all and that we have to work to come up with a solution for all of our students.
That's right. And that's a primary fundamental principle of that model.
Right. And a lot of this could involve reimaging how we use various spaces, you know, the cafeteria, the library, the Williamstown Youth Center, which is a wonderful building right next to Williamstown Elementary, is that we do have the ability to change how things were used in the past to deal with the pandemic right now. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, so I don't have any business that has arrived in the last 40 hours. In terms of next meetings, Rob, do you have any meetings that are coming up that you want to add? A report to the school committee, I think on the 29th or the 30th.
Oh, yeah, actually, thank you very much for bringing that up.
Yep.
I actually, let me just call up my calendar here.
Okay.
Basically, I had done my best impression of FDR at a fireside chat last week for staff, and I'm going to do one for staff and the community next week. I'm right now planning on. Let me see. There you go. And basically, I kind of like some advice. I did the last one around 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon, and I'd like to do this one on the 28th. And I'm thinking about, I put down 5 o'clock because I'm not sure how to best meet all of the parents and the community and the family, whether is 2 o'clock okay, is 5 o'clock okay? I open this up for a quick question from this the education subgroup.
And then the 28th is a Tuesday?
A Tuesday, yes.
All right, so the question is it better to do it in the afternoon or is it better to do it after people come home from work?
I'd recommend doing it outside of work hours if possible.
Right.
Yeah, I think when we have, generally speaking, you tend to get more participation if it's outside of the quote unquote typical working hours.
Do you think 6 o'clock would be okay?
Tough thing about 6 o'clock is you're running into like the dinner rush.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
So
how about
better to do it at 8 o'clock?
7, 8 o'clock?
I don't know what's worked well for other meetings, but I would try to do it either 4:35-ish or later. I'm not sure what would attract more people.
Do we have any community members on the line?
Of course, to some extent, the community members who are online are the community members who are already talking to you and listening to what you are saying.
Right.
We need the community members who are not listening right now to please tell us what time works for you.
Yeah, I mean, I can do it anytime, you know. I'm a musician, like 11 o'clock at night works for me.
Would you be willing to try 2 sessions to try to?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that, no problem.
You know,
but the other point is that I do record them so people can listen to my podcast.
Right. So do you want to try one at sometime between 7 and 8 p.m.? One of those time works for you.
Yeah, I can do. I'll do a 2 and how about a 2 and a 7:30?
Okay, 2 p.m. and 7:30.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you might consider doing lunchtime because people could do it during their lunch break. Just pop on Zoom.
I like the concept.
All right.
Noon and to 7:30.
And then, unfortunately, because of our alcohol policy, I can't do 7:30 in drinks. So I will say.
The only other meeting that I have upcoming is that I don't miss the 6 p.m. school committee meeting on the 29th to hear the presentation on for the 20. It's going to be must-see TV.
Okay. Just saw something in the chat. And then Christina just gave me some links to share, so I'm going to just add those as well. Okay. Any other agenda items? So Rob, are you going to want another education subcommittee meeting before the presentation to the school committee?
No, I think probably the best would be for just basically the 29th is, remember, this is not the heavy lift. This is really just sort of a feasibility study and our best thinking on which model we're going to go with. The real big one is going to be is August 10th. And I believe that something in early August would be good to get together.
August 10th, that's when we need to submit to the state?
Yeah, August 10th is the date that I've got to actually submit detailed plans to the state. So if we were to, my God, where's the summer going? Perhaps if we did something the week of the 3rd, that would be helpful.
Sure. And so I will talk to some people to find availability. So we will plan to have the next school committee meeting the week of the 3rd. And this will be good. This will be after the presentation to the school committee and before everything is due with the state.
Yes, and actually it's important to note that the guidance from MASC to the school committees is that the school committee is going to vote on our plan. And so I guess we should probably schedule something. There's not a regularly scheduled school committee meeting, is there at this point?
For August?
Early August.
It's the second week, the second Thursday of the month, but I don't, hold on.
That would be the 13th.
Which
it's
is
scheduled for the
13th. Let me just check for a second. So what it says, according to the MASC, my favorite stuff here, yeah. The MASC policy says that DESI has asked, your superintendent will need to forward these contingency plans, and ultimately, you, the school committee, will need to approve a final plan to get students back to school in September. This plan will most likely include budgeting, building safety, security strategies for instruction, etc. So in any case, we should probably schedule something to follow what that recommendation is.
Okay. Why don't you and I talk about what dates work for you, and then once I have some idea of your schedule, I'll talk to the rest of the committee.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Excellent. Right. So I think it's time to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. Discussion. And I just want to say briefly to everybody who's listening now, as well as who's going to listen to this later, it's really wonderful that we live in a community where we can talk about these issues, where we can look at the different studies, these hard questions, and try to figure out, what is the best path forward to find what's going to work for all of us. And these are going to be very difficult decisions to do. It's terrific that we have so many dedicated people in the community who are willing to spend the time that's needed on such important questions to help us make the best decisions we can with the data that we have and the data that we can get. So I just want to thank everyone again for participating. If you have any additional questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to us. I will put my email in the chat, but you can also get it from the school committee webpage. here. I think we have had a motion. It's been seconded. Before a roll call vote.
Carter, I.
Conry, aye.
Miller, aye. It is 4:13 p.m. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, again. Enjoy the rest of the day. And enjoy the next that surely everybody has.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.